So to introduce John Kepler's session for Project Management 2020, Dr. John Kepler is currently the tech training team leader at Stanford. He holds a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering, an MBA, and a doctorate in business management. He has taught in the University of Utah, University of California, and College of Notre Dame. He has also led the International Technical Training Program for the IEEE, the world's largest technical professional association. And thank you very much, John, again for being here today. And thank you for your patience as we get ready for your presentation. The floor is yours.
Welcome. And we can go ahead and get started. Well, project management is one of those topics that you're going to be hearing a lot about in the next few years. So I thought it would be worthwhile for us to take a look at why that's the case and some of the trends that are propelling project management into the forefront. Well, certainly 2020 has been an interesting year so far. Now, just being interesting alone is not enough to justify a lot of project management, but let me share with you what really does justify a clear focus on project management. Take a look at these things that we've sort of been dealing with in recent weeks. Managing the pandemic, testing, contact tracing, developing a vaccine, treatment. And I'm going to ask just one very simple question. What do all of these things have in common? And the answer is really quite simple. One word. They're all projects. Every one of these is a major project. Whether it's managing the pandemic itself, whether testing or contact tracing, developing a vaccine or treatment, each of these is a project in its own right. And our success depends on how successful each of those projects is going to be and how well they are able to produce and deliver the outcomes that are desired from these projects. So you can begin to see the significance of projects. And this is only in one particular arena. Now, imagine across all different businesses, industries, and the number and the magnitude of all the projects that are out there. This is why project management is really increasing in importance, and the demand for effective project managers that are able to produce results, bring in the projects on time and within budget is continually rising. The project management industry is bright and glowing. Even though things seem a little gloomy right now, project management is still glowing and growing. As a matter of fact, experts anticipate that the project management industry will grow by 6.6 trillion in 2030. That is significant growth. So it is really very, very important for organizations to improve their business professionals and leaders' knowledge of project management and how to effectively produce projects that really provide us with the desired outcomes. Most people are involved with projects, and quite often they really don't have all of the different intricate pieces that really are required to bring in a project successfully within budget and on time. So I'm going to now focus my attention on 5 key trends that we are observing in the project management arena, and they are worth us taking a look at simply by virtue of the significance of project management and the fact that it is more than likely that all of us will be involved with a project in some way or another in the next few years. First and foremost, already we've talked a little bit about sort of some of the changes that have been happening, and one of them is increased remote work. And we are going to see a significant increase in the number of people working from home. And one thing that we have realized is that, in fact, using a project management approach to managing these workers is one of the most effective approaches to produce, again, the desired results. So as we see this rise and increase in individuals working from home, we are seeing a greater demand for managers that really are able to take a project management approach to work and delegate projects to the workers at home, which makes it much easier to evaluate and manage effectively, even though someone may be working remotely. Another key trend we are going to see in project management is the involvement of data science, artificial intelligence, and automation. Smart machines or AI algorithms are going to be taking over most of the routine project management work. And I'm going to describe for you what some of the things that are happening already in the business and what some project managers are already doing with some of these tools. But before I do that, I want to share with you that Gartner is actually predicting that by 2030, as much as 80% of the routine work, which represents the bulk of human hours spent in today's project management disciplines, can be and will be eliminated as a result of collaboration between humans and smart machines. And what do we mean by those smart machines? Really, AI and the introduction of machine learning. PPM practices in the future will be unrecognizable to the practitioners of 2017. This is what a recent researcher is saying. Flexibility, innovation, and critical thinking will become the attributes for this role as routine work will be increasingly managed by machines. We will have to work more efficiently, and the human element is going to be designated for very different set of tasks, and all the routine types of things are going to be handled by machines. So what are these machines doing now, and how is AI penetrating the project management environment? Well, the newly designed AI bots are basically offloading routine tasks, like, for instance, scheduling a meeting. A project manager no longer needs to consume their time in looking at 10 different people's calendars and trying to find when they're free to schedule a meeting for the project. The bot could do that for you and take away or save you a lot of the time that you would have normally had to consume in doing such a task. Chatbots are also helping project managers to stay in sync with their projects. Chatbots like Google Meet, Mika, or Collect Chat help project team meetings, help to schedule the project team meetings and save valuable time. They also can record the meeting and translate those meetings, the recordings, into meeting minutes. So these bots will certainly become more and more pervasive in the practice of project management. Chatbots can also do something else that's really interesting. They can function to connect different team members together, and so at the end of the day, collect and garner input about the status of their various tasks. And to some extent, we have a good tool that we are using right now in our arsenal, Smartsheet, that can do a lot of these things. Smartsheet can actually send out automatic notifications for certain events once a particular status is reached. It can be programmed or instructed to do that. And if we add a few layers of metadata to this information, the AI engine can check data consistency and even provide advice to the project manager to help them improve the quality of data that the user is inputting, to highlight mistakes, inconsistencies, and sort of help maintain a decent standard for the project management tasks. Let me give you another quick example from software projects specifically. They have bots that can monitor every change made to a source code. And of course, they link it to the developer that made that change and the task that's involved, and they can keep the entire development team abreast of what's happening, what's changing, what has been working, what has not in a particular format. It can identify bugs in lines of code. It can identify the individual that made it and the task that it relates to. So this allows for real actionable indicators of what individuals and the team are doing in real time, and allows the project manager to get a status on these tasks very easily from these automated bots. Another interesting chatbot that's out there, Strategist, if you haven't come across it, can also provide very helpful assistance with team coordination. And this particular tool is especially useful on agile projects because it helps identify if a sprint or a project is about to run into trouble. And of course, by identifying this potential problem, it helps us to avoid it and, in fact, maybe resolve it a little bit easier by tackling it early. It can also help us improve in real time the monitoring practices and provide different team members with training that they may need to help them avoid particular problems that have been identified. So AI is really going to revamp the practice of project management in the next few years. It's already made some significant strides in the business, and we already see many industries like credit scoring, counterterrorism, banking, and finance using AI and predictive analytics to predict events before they even happen. So let me give you an interesting example here from the banking industry. Banks can actually predict individuals who are developing Alzheimer before a physician can actually diagnose it, simply based on their behavior and the number of calls they're making about charges that they have forgotten on their credit cards. So the algorithm now can identify for the bank, this individual is developing Alzheimer, there's a risk here, and banks have a dilemma. Do they let these people know and sort of alert their physicians? Because the earlier you are able to identify and diagnose the disease, the better the treatment, or do they remain silent? But their data is very potent, and these AI bots are able to predict these types of diagnosis. Data is just going to be incredibly important in the future of project management. So a lot of predictions about a project can also be made by analyzing the project team's behavior and their habits, when they post their reports, the language that they use in their status reports. All kinds of things can be used by the AI to sort of give us an idea about the temperament of the team, the productivity of the team, and all these things sort of help the project manager to stay on top of what's going on in the project, and allows the project manager to also predict some operational details. What if the project actually is running a little behind? Well, the AI, by telling us that the status reports are not coming in meeting the baselines of the project, immediately highlights for the project manager that there's a potential delay here. It also addresses or highlights and identifies potential quality issues. What's interesting is they also navigate into the area of human behavior and personal issues that may arise. So let's take, for example, someone who really hasn't been putting in all of the required status reports. Obviously, there is a personal issue here. Either they're absent, they're not in touch with what's going on with the project. And so the bots don't identify the actual cause, but they can certainly alert us to the presence of some sort of an issue or a problem that needs to be addressed. So AI can then unobtrusively collect metadata about what's going on and look at how team members are actually performing their job. This is going to be especially helpful when you have remote teams and you're coordinating and collaborating with teams that are not necessarily in close proximity. So on a project, a lot of predictions can be made by analyzing the team's behavior and their habits, and this data is one of the data that's collected about all of their actions is one of the best ways that we can do this. So that's our second trend. Imagine AI doing all the mundane tasks and then assigning the rest of sort of the more challenging tasks to the right team member based on their skills and expertise. And it's not just going to stop there. Machines are also able to now predict shortcomings of performance for particular individuals, generate actionable reports, and share best practices at every step. This is both powerful and very useful to train project managers and help them progress in addressing the tasks they need to address. So project management AI is going to have a huge impact on how projects are going to be run in the future, and project managers and project teams who take advantage of this early will definitely have an edge over those that don't. Future project management will involve a definite increase in collaboration between man and machine. So we've talked about two key trends so far. The third trend that I really want to highlight is sort of a strategic approach to projects. I'm sure that many of you have been hearing about Agile and Scrum, and many of you are still sort of engaged in the traditional practice of project management. Well, what we're going to see evolve is really a hybrid between the traditional project management approaches, Scrum and Agile. What we're finding out really is different aspects of a project lend themselves to an Agile approach, while others may in fact lend themselves to a traditional project management approach. And so the best approach for success on the project is really to work with a hybrid and not to be stuck with any particular developmental model for a project, to be flexible, to use Scrum when it makes sense, to use an Agile approach if that's what's needed, or to continue with a traditional approach if in fact that in itself will be the best approach to use. Recently, PMI did a study which they called the drivers of agility, and they found that companies operating with a high degree of agility bring significantly more projects to successful completion than those that don't. And so we are in fact going to see an increase in using Agile approaches, even in domains that traditionally did not employ the Agile techniques. Originally, Agile was really sort of relegated to software and perhaps some technical projects, but now we're seeing it migrate across the board to all types of different types of projects. It's not strictly limited to software anymore. I should also mention that this development has propelled PMI to actually revamp their PMP certification process. And the certification of PMPs is completely going to change as of January 2021. They are going to start a whole new exam that is going to integrate some of these Agile concepts into the exam because of the growth and increase in using Agile techniques in project management. The exam, by the way, for now is still using the traditional processes in the traditional project management model, and that will continue to be the case all the way until January 2021 at this point. So other companies that are sort of experimenting with different degrees of agility, 68% are looking at various Agile methods. Some are saying, 71% are already saying they're using predictive analytics, and 72% are in fact already employing a hybrid methodology. Companies that exhibit a low degree of agility, only 41% of them are saying they're using Agile methods, 51% predictive, and hybrid methodology. So whether we look at the high employment of Agile or low, we still see a significant increase in the approach towards Agile. Now, project management, in terms of the fourth trend, will also require an important set of skills that hasn't been emphasized in the past. And this set of skills really demands a very high degree of emotional intelligence from the project manager. And what do we mean when we talk about emotional intelligence? Well, it is the ability to deal with different personalities, diverse and different cultures, remote workers, remote communication challenges and demands, and having a keen understanding of human emotions, both of the project manager and as well as others. This is really what defines a high degree of emotional intelligence. Now, again, given the fact that many of us in the workforce will be working remote, the demand and the pressure to improve emotional intelligence for project managers is going to increase. And it is much harder also to sort of read emotions when you're working and dealing with individuals who are remote, when you are only looking through the lens of a video camera and you are not really in the presence of that particular individual. And consequently, that is going to demand a higher level of emotional intelligence. So it is important for us to begin working on developing those skills, because as you develop your emotional intelligence, you'll be able to build better relationships, not only with others, but with your own self, because you will get to know yourself better, you will have a better understanding of yourself, and you will develop a greater sense of self-discipline. Emotional intelligence allows us to develop productive project teams. That's really the secret at the core of motivating and developing an effective project team. Emotional intelligence is really all about the ability to recognize and understand your own feelings and the feelings of others, and then to have the skill and the ability to influence those feelings in a positive direction. That's really the art and science of emotional intelligence. So it involves 4 key things: self-awareness, self-management, and social awareness and relationship management. And I encourage anyone who's interested in a project management career to work on developing those skills. All right, our last trend that I would like to highlight, last but perhaps not least, is the increased focus on quantitative project management techniques. Translation: more looking at data, more looking at data analytics and numbers as they pertain to the project. And here I've summarized just a very brief statement by Peter Drucker: what gets measured gets managed. And so in order to effectively manage a project, we have to be continually measuring what's going on. And how do we measure? Well, we need to identify the data that will help us do these types of measurements. Now, certainly in the traditional model, and the PMP trains project managers to use the following project analytic parameters. These are going to be very important indicators and pieces of data as we move forward for every project. And don't be surprised if the manager will come and ask you for, okay, give me what the project cost variance is, or the time variance at completion. All of these analytic parameters are going to be significant, and they're going to be the tools for measuring quantitatively how well a project is doing. A schedule performance index, for instance, it is a number that will identify for us whether a project is behind schedule or whether a project is ahead of schedule, or of course, if it is on schedule. Similarly, the project cost performance index will tell us about the budget. Are we within budget, or have we exceeded our actual budget? Everyone that is involved with project management will definitely need to understand and utilize the project cost curves and be able to immediately look at their project and know where their project is using these project cost curves. This is what we mean when we talk about quantitative and analytic approaches to project management. So here on this graph, we simply see the planned value for the project, the budget at completion, and the actual cost, this orange line, of what we're actually spending as the project is progressing. And we can also see earned value. We can identify slippage. We can see the cost variances between what we've actually spent and the earned value that has actually been accomplished and work in place. So we have our cost variance easy to see. And this is the planned value, again, versus the earned value, which gives us the schedule variance. All of these concepts are important concepts for every project manager to be aware of. And I highly encourage everyone to become familiar with these elements, because they are going to be the hallmark for project management in the future. Now, if you're someone who really doesn't like numbers and finds these tools and doesn't have the right tools to sort of manage projects this way, then the key task for you is to find the tools that will help you, that will do all of that work for you. Certainly, no one is scheduling projects anymore by doing them on a graph paper and using the backward pass and the forward pass and developing a network diagram. There are many software tools that will automatically do that for us in a matter of literally a minute or two once you have put in all of the tasks for the project. So get high-level data and custom, give us, the tools will also give us these high-level data and custom reports. And the tools are Google Data Studio, Smartsheet, and Tableau. They're all great at helping us visualize data and getting a clear and coherent picture of where our projects are. So in today's digital era, project management tools have become an indispensable part of project management. As a matter of fact, recent research tells us that 77% of high-performing projects will use or do use project management software to plan, execute, and control all aspects of their project and the project management process. So prepare for the future, sharpen the saw. Sharpen the saw is one of the 7 habits of the highly successful or highly effective people. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the book that Cosby wrote a couple of decades ago. And he mentioned 7 skills of highly effective people. And one of those skills was to sharpen the saw, meaning continually refine, update, and improve your skills. And certainly anyone who is going to be engaged in project management certainly needs to do that. The tools are continually evolving, and the process itself and the techniques for management are changing. It is important to know about the agile techniques as well as the traditional practices of project management. And as a tip for any of you who are interested, in fact, in pursuing a PMP certification, I may advise you to proceed to do that as quickly as possible. The exam now is much easier, and you're also able to take it from your home, which is something they've never done before. You can take it online, and so the process, in my opinion, is much easier than it has ever been in the past to get a PMP certification. Prepare for the future, sharpen the saw, and best of luck to you.
Great. Thank you very much, John.
You're very welcome. Do we have any questions?
I see that Creed is posting some links inside of the chat for some upcoming classes. John and Dom, actually, they teach a class on PMP certification training. So if you're interested in learning more about getting certified with PMP, you can go to the link that Creed has just posted. And also curious about the what questions you have, please feel free to post them into the Q&A. And one of the questions is, since PMP is on demand, will be taught online, will it be cheaper? And so in this case here, the price that we're actually offering the PMP class here within Stanford, we always try to make sure we get a discount to make sure that you are getting the best price possible for this type of training. If you're looking into any kind of training specifically for your department for PMP, feel free to reach out to us, and we're happy to help you out with that as well. I know that John has been working with other schools on campus as well to bring the PMP training directly to them. One question that came up was, how does a project manager address the use of bots like Smartsheet? I know some coworkers feel like their bosses are tracking them and looking over their shoulder already.
All right. Well, Smartsheet is really a tool just like any other tool. Once you become familiar with how Smartsheet is used, you and your manager have the ability to see what's available in the software. So it's not as if someone is looking over your shoulder. It is simply about what are we both tracking, and that actually helps the project manager as well as anyone who is overseeing a project as a program manager. Because once we know what we're tracking, then we know where to place our focus. So in many ways, a tool like Smartsheet really helps us to stay on track. And for instance, it helps me to know what the expectations, if I'm a team member, of my project manager are. What do I need to update? What's the baseline? And Smartsheet will give me reminders. If I didn't update something and I just overlooked it, it will send me a reminder and ask me to do it. So it really helps us. It's not about overlooking or sort of micromanaging and looking over someone's shoulder. It's really about helping everyone stay abreast of what's needed and keeping greater transparency for everyone involved. So I really don't see it as a negative at all. Once you understand how the tool works, you can see the many different benefits that it offers. One other tip that I want to share with the participants: if you don't feel you are ready for the actual PMP certification, you may wish to consider the associate certification, which is only a 2-hour exam. It's called the CAPM, the Certified Associate Project Manager. And in many ways, it helps pave the road for the PMP itself, because you cover a lot of the topics. And once you get the Certified Associate certification, within a couple of years, you can then do the other exam and get the actual PMP certification. And the criteria for eligibility or being able to sit for the CAPM is far less rigorous. As a matter of fact, it's minimal. You don't even had to have done any project management work yet. So if you're really thinking about this as a career choice and something you want to develop, you may want to use that as a stepping stone towards the PMP itself and get ahead of the curve and start with that. It's called the CAPM, and we do offer the courses to help you prepare for that. And right now, they're also offering that exam online.
Yeah, I can say that Technology Training is offering a CAPM class that's coming up later this month in June. And one of the great things about these classes that John and Dong are offering is typically a class like this is multi-day. And instead of taking it 5 days in a row or 3 days in a row, you actually take them 1 day a week. So this gives you plenty of opportunity to practice what you've learned inside the classes. Any kind of pre-reading or post-reading, any kind of homework that John or Dong also prescribe to you during the sessions. And this is more of sessions that do take place over a number of weeks to help you prepare for those examinations. We received some nice feedback for folks as well, so thank you very much for the feedback. The question that came up is, where can we get PMP certification? Are there any specific programs focused around the medical field?
The PMP does not have a medical track or a specific track for any industry, because the view is a PMP certification is a broad and general overview of all the processes that a project uses. And therefore, all of these projects, they will apply to the medical sector, they will apply to production in manufacturing, they will apply to a service-oriented enterprise, they will apply to education. The PMP is really about the structure and the processes that must be managed on any project, and there are a lot of parallels. What really varies is the technical expertise in terms of what you need to know about a particular process. But the process itself is the same. So we say that there is project management and there's product or service management. The product or service management requires knowledge of the product and knowledge of the service, and then that needs to be specific to a particular sector, because where that project or service, or I'm sorry, where that product or service engages or applies. But the project itself is the umbrella under which we manage all those projects for products and services. And so the technical expertise is needed to know about the products and the services, but the project management expertise cuts across the board, and someone who may efficiently know how to effectively manage projects then uses their technical skills in tandem with the project management to manage those. So for the healthcare and the medical profession, as long as you have that technical knowledge, once you support it with the project management framework, then you have a potent combination and you can apply it within that domain. But there is no medical or healthcare specific PMP.
Great, thank you very much.
Very well.
Next question is, what project management software is out there? They've used MS Project before, and what recommendations do you have for project software?
That's a very good question, and there are so many different project management software products out there. It is almost impossible for me to name all of them because there are so many. What I will tell you about the business or the field is that, first of all, some of these project management tools are industry specific. So for instance, for construction, there are certain software packages that are more in alignment with that particular industry. Then there are some which I will call generic, like Microsoft Project, for instance, or Smartsheet. These are generic software tools that are made for any type of project, be it healthcare, be it in an educational institution. They're not really designed for any specific industry. Then, of course, there are project tools for the financial industry. So the first question that you have to ask, do I want one that's industry specific or do I want a generic tool? Then the next question is, within the generics, how sophisticated is my project? It is a very different task and endeavor to manage a $200 million project versus a $2 million project. And certainly the tool for the 200 million is going to look a little bit different from one that can easily handle, say, something from 2 to 20 million. So I typically advocate for most of the nature of the projects that we work on at Stanford, tools like Smartsheet, which is an effective one and is easy to learn, and the learning curve is quick where you can put it to use fairly rapidly.
Okay. Next question is, what roles would benefit the most from PMP certification?
To be honest with you, almost any role that manages any type of a project. So for instance, let me take the case of Stanford, for example. There are people that manage events, and these events are projects, and PMP has been incredibly helpful. There are research projects. There are many individuals who work on publishing certain things, and those are projects. There are individuals in the medical profession who are working on specific projects in medicine and in labs. All of these projects lend themselves to that. Someone who's developing a curriculum for a course, that's a project in its own right. There is really no limit on the number of applications and the nature of different projects that go on within an academic institution. And so anytime you're dealing with a project, you're going to find that the PMP will be of use and will help you significantly.
Great, thank you very much. Next question is actually an Agile question for teams, or do you know of any teams at Stanford that use Agile in non-tech context? Our team at the Office of International Affairs is an Agile team, and we would love to know of other teams like us to exchange best practices.
All right, you've just met your counterpart. We at Tech Training do use Agile, and I would love to connect with you. So by all means, let's connect.
One of the things that we're looking to do is revive the Agile COP, the community of practice that used to be active on campus. So this is a great way to get that rolling again. Thank you very much for your question, Melina. And Melina, feel free if you want to reach out to us at techtraining@stanford.edu, and we'd be happy to connect with you. Next question is, if we enroll now, do we take the January 2021 test that includes the hybrid model, we're talking about PMP, or will the classes now incorporate what will be on the test in January?
All right. If you enroll now, the class that we are conducting right now prepares you for the current test, not the one that will start January 2021. We prepare you for the existing test, which is really based on the traditional project management approach. And that's the one that they are testing on until the end of this year. So our classes are geared for that specific class. And so again, if you're really seriously considering this, I highly recommend that you do it as quickly as possible. You'll have two advantages. One, this particular test is easier. Two, you'll be able to do it from the convenience and comfort of your home. So if you are really considering this, this may be a good time to motivate yourself, sign on, and get it done. And it's really, once you take the class, it is not a difficult undertaking.
Okay, next question is, as an intern who's looking into taking certification tests, would you recommend they take the COMP, the CompTIA Project Plus certification test?
That's a little bit different from the PMP, and I won't say anything negative about it, but I will just say that it is different. The focus is different. The content is different.
Okay. And we have a few more questions here. And this one is an interesting one that we haven't heard of yet. Do you offer classes for PGMP, which is Program Management Professional classes?
We haven't offered any for the program manager yet, but at some point we may bring that on board as well. But currently, we do not offer any.
Yeah, with technology training, if there ever is a tool or something like the program management professional training that you're interested in, feel free to reach out to us just so we know that there is interest in that type of training needed on campus. Last question I have on here is, for someone looking to get into a project management position for the first time, would you recommend the CAPM 3-day workshop or the 5-day PMP certification training?
I would recommend the CAPM. If this is an entry-level foray into project management, that is your best bet. The PMP may be somewhat overwhelming for you.
Okay, a few more questions just came in. First one is work experience important for passing the PMP certification?
The honest answer is no. However, it is important in another respect. It is important to be able to qualify to take the exam, because PMI has a minimum years of experience in project management that you must have had, and you have to document the project management work that you've done in order to qualify simply just to sit for the exam. But in terms of do you have to have had experience in project management in order to be able to take the class and learn the material? The answer is no. The way we teach it, anyone, even someone who has not done a lot of project management experience, will learn and will benefit from it.
And as we're coming up on 2:30, we have one last question here. And this is a question that I believe everybody who's interested in PMP, this is on their minds. Where it says, my friends working in the tech industry say that the PMP test is hard, and some are afraid of taking the test. Is it really that hard?
Okay. Well, obviously your friend hasn't taken our class. Our job with our class is to make it easy and really help pave the road for you to easily pass that exam. The exam is hard if you don't understand the key concepts and how to prepare for the exam. Yes, it would be hard. And so the goal behind the class that we've put together at Tech Training is really to demystify the process. And we actually have you do a lot of exam questions. And so far, I am not aware of anyone who has taken the class that has not passed the exam.
Okay, and sorry, there is one more question that came up here. Let's see if we can finish this one up. And if anybody has any questions after this question here, feel free to write us at techtraining@stanford.edu. But the last question of the day, if you take the CAPM, would you also have to take the PMP class to take the PMP test?
Yes, even if you take the CAPM, to qualify for the CAPM exam, the qualifications are minimal. But then for the PMP, there are other qualifications that you have to meet. And one of them is the educational requirement of, I believe it's 40 hours training prior to taking the exam. So yes, you would still have to take the PMP class.
Okay. That's all the questions we have so far. John, thank you so much again for taking the time for the presentation, for answering all the questions.
As usual, my pleasure, Don. And if anyone has any additional questions, by all means, please feel free to send them to me directly or send them to Tech Training, and we would be happy to answer them for you. And best of luck with all your project management endeavors.